Episode number 5. Hello and welcome everyone to That's Hindsight, the podcast that puts media from the past under the microscope. We look back with hindsight and see whether films from yesteryear hold up today. Hello everyone, I'm Ed Frizzell, and today I am joined by Taylor Blackman.
Hi, hello. Nice to be here. Hola.
Hola. Also here we have Mark Shepherd.
Hello there. I think you said your name was Frizzell, but I wasn't sure.
I know, I stumbled over a little bit, but I'll leave it in.
Beautiful. I think they'll enjoy that.
How are you?
Very well, thank you. Yourself?
Yes, very good. Can't complain. And Taylor, how are you?
Absolutely grand. Absolutely grand. It was supposed to snow today and it did not. It rained. So I'm depressed about that. But apart from that, great.
Always disappointing when the weather lies to you.
It did snow here for a little bit. Just didn't settle.
There's no point in snow if it's not going to settle. Like, literally, why?
Well, they weren't lying. You know, it did snow.
It was supposed to... Yesterday night when I went to bed, 100% snow all day. Wake up this morning, 100% rain all day. Hashtag muggy.
Yeah, you've been mugged you right off there, haven't you?
I have been mugged off. Deprived of sledging and happiness.
It is a shame it didn't snow this weekend. I would have been happy this weekend. So I didn't have to... I had to take my car in for an MOT last weekend,
Wow.
and it snowed, and it put it off, and so now it's all done, and I could happily enjoy the snow. But, of course, it won't do it now. I actually wanted to do it.
Can you tell that story again?
But I had to make it make sense, otherwise the audience would be like, why do you care what weekend it snows?
Leave him wanting more.
Leave them wanting more, exactly. And to do so, I think we should take a journey back. To 1992. Well, 1992. How old were you, Mark?
12. Well, obviously, halfway through the year I was 12.
Good age, before it gets awkward.
Yeah, it wasn't too bad. I think I was at upper school at that point. Well, no, I wasn't. I was in the last year of middle school. Yeah, 12, innit?
Yeah. I would have been 5.
Wow, okay.
5, good age as well.
I was minus 8.
Yeah.
Good age.
It
Solid.
was.
Cool age, yeah.
I'm waiting for one of you to say the world was a better place.
I don't need to say it anymore. The audience knows.
Well, I know in 1992 the world did become a better place because Mae Jemison became the first African-American woman in space.
Oh, wow. There you go. That's in 1992. Blimey.
Yeah.
When was the rocket launch? The original one.
The original rocket launch.
What original rocket launch are you talking about?
When we went to the moon.
That's 69.
That wasn't
Okay.
the original one, though.
Yeah, but that's what I meant. That's what I meant. I didn't know if... Because why have we not gone to the moon since? It just doesn't make sense.
Sorry. Oh,
Mark's died.
we have been to the moon since then. There wasn't a one-off.
Have we? But not
Yes.
since I've
In
been
the
alive.
70s we went a few times.
Yeah, we don't go much anymore. I don't think they have the funding for it. They're more into about the International Space Station these days.
Well, I've spaced out. Hey.
Oh, God.
Oh, come on. So, in 1992, 28,800 rubber duckies fell off a cargo ship in the middle of the Pacific Ocean. What a story. What a year. What an event. Bar pollution. It does make me quite happy to think of the ducks just all bobbing along.
They're still out there somewhere, aren't they?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it's pollution. I think it's just a lovely event.
But just think about, it would have been great. Imagine who accidentally loosened the reins or whatever and knocked the crate over.
It sounds deliberate to me.
I like the idea that there was someone on deck that was kind of like, had that brief second of, I can get him back! Wait!
Just turn around, he's
Get in
holding
there.
one. I saved this one.
I would watch a film about that event.
Oh, yeah.
I think there's a book about it. When I was Googling pictures, I think I might have seen a book. Secret
Wow.
Santa present.
You have to wonder what that book is. Is it very long? I mean, well, the boat was there, the ducks were in the water. End of story.
I really wanted to sing. Do you remember the song? Ooh, the ducks are sitting in the water. I just had the instinct to sing that.
I have no idea what that song is, and now
It's
I feel
alright.
really awkward for you.
I'll just go and cry.
Anyway, so Also in 92, the first SMS text message was ever sent on December the 3rd. And it was sent by a 22-year-old test engineer from his computer to a phone, and it just said, "Merry Christmas."
Oh, lovely.
I love knowing that was the first text message ever sent was "Merry Christmas." From himself to himself. That's a little sadder.
Yeah, I mean, it took a dark turn at the end, but
Yeah.
Merry Christmas is
There
what
you
a
go.
lovely message.
All the way back in 92, your first ever text message. Because they weren't on phones until a lot later than that, from what I remember. I remember having a first phone around 97, 98, and I think they just started doing it around then. I could be wrong, but... And you had to pay, originally, when you first had text messages.
Pay as you go.
You had to pay per message, I'm sure you did.
Put £10 credit on your phone, then text your mates.
But it was... it used to be different.
Had to go and deposit cash.
I imagine they just billed you at the end of the month, didn't they?
It was, I can't remember. I remember my sister had a phone before anyone else I knew for some reason. And it had a very thin screen, so the text used to just scroll along it. It was very, very interesting. But, we've moved on a little bit since then.
We have. America has moved on because Bill Clinton was elected as the 42nd president of the United States, defeating President George H.W. Bush.
Is it just George H. Bush, not... Is it H.W.?
I cannot confirm or deny what I've copied and pasted from the internet there.
I think it's just George H. Bush and George W. Bush.
W. Bush, yeah. Well, maybe he's HW.
Could be. I don't know.
Who am I? I'm not an American historian.
Why don't you message us and let us know?
Please write in.
Yeah.
Tweet Mark.
Oh, tweet Mark with... Sorry.
Please just tweet me, H or W.
Yeah, tweet at Mark Shepherd and see where that goes.
Not to me, I'll tell you that much.
It's like John Lewis. John Lewis, the actual at John Lewis, is owned by someone called John Lewis, and he responds to all of the inquiries he receives.
I like that he won't give it up either. Like, fair play to him.
They would have offered him
Absolutely.
some major moolah for that. So I'm going to keep on the theme of McDonald's, as I had a McDonald's fact last week, and I'm a #1 fan looking for a sponsorship, open to offers.
Last week, was that?
Last podcast month.
You got it wrong.
The largest McDonald's in the world was opened in Beijing, China.
I can tell you that was also the first McDonald's to open in China.
Oh, were you there?
No, I nearly copied the same fact.
Wow.
Is it still the largest?
Oh.
You see, there's no follow-up to this fact. And you said you were prepared, Taylor. And quite honestly, I feel like you weren't.
And you're who we go through for McDonald's trivia.
I'll try harder.
Yeah, come on. I want the next week / month / podcasts fact about McDonald's to be fully fleshed out, please.
Okay.
All right, here's a random news event. A North Dakotan teen called John Thompson was home alone when he had both his arms chopped off by a tractor in a freak farming accident. However, he still managed to get up, go inside, and dial for help holding a pencil in his mouth, and he survived. I mean, that's both awful but amazing.
Did they attach his arms again?
I've not fleshed this fact out any more than that.
I have so many questions.
It's something to ponder, you know. I'm guessing probably not. I'm guessing if they were torn off, they were perhaps mangled, but he survived, you know. That's something.
I really wish for this moment that it was a video podcast, because Ed's face was truly traumatised throughout the entire of that fact. It started off so simple and just got so graphic so quickly.
Yeah,
A lot like this
I
film.
to take you on a journey. I want to take you on a journey.
Do your words take us there? Microsoft, well-known technology company, released Microsoft Windows 3.1, which is quite a famous edition of Windows, and starting to look quite recognisable to where it ended up with Windows 95 and now Windows 10.
I remember it. I remember 3.1. That was we used to have that on the machines at school. Yeah.
Great update.
It did. It did look like. Like I say, it still had that Windows look. You can remember. You can look at. I can look back at it and think to myself, yeah, it was on the way at that point. Yeah, even though I don't think we had. Well, it did have Internet Explorer on it, and it was still the same E, just a
Don't think it
much
had a
lower
start
resolution.
bar either. No,
No, so... But I'm sure it had Minesweeper on it, and that's all that really mattered.
that is.
My next fact is in the spirit of the film. Kind of. There were 2,641 bank robberies in LA in 1992, averaging one every 45 minutes.
That's insane.
Insane. How many banks are there?
Probably a few more than that.
Do you think? More than 2,641?
Well, I don't think they're knocking off the same bank more than once in 45 minutes.
No, but
Same damn bank every time.
Again? Oh, here we go. There's probably thousands upon thousands, isn't there, in that area? That's still a high number, though. That's mega.
It is.
don't work in a bank.
Police were busy.
Yeah, well, yeah. All right, well, here's my last fact then. So Nike made a Super Bowl commercial where an animated Bugs Bunny played basketball with real-life Michael Jordan. And this commercial was so successful that it decided to turn into the film Space Jam. Which is even more on point because there's a sequel coming out, I believe, this year.
I did not know that it came from an advert.
Neither did I. That's why I was just like, that is quite a good one. I just thought it was some idea they'd had. But yeah, come from a Super Bowl advert, so...
I can't remember if Space Jam's supposed to be any good or not. I remember enjoying it as a child.
I think it's become more of a cult classic than anything else. Well, obviously, it's good enough to spawn a sequel nearly 20 years later, 30 years later.
Upsettingly 30 years later, yeah.
Oh, God, 30 years later, yeah.
I haven't seen it.
You haven't seen Space Jam?
No.
It's a very good film. It's not a very good film. It's enjoyable. It's a bit of a laugh. But it was always notable that they had the same website up advertising the site for years on years, and it stayed exactly the same, like that early 90s website with just randomly weird gifs and texts and stuff everywhere, and it stayed there. I don't know if it's still there. I'd hope so.
Well, we had to wait for Space Jam in 92, but the highest grossing movie of that year was Aladdin, the Disney animation.
Yes. It's a
Why
classic.
do I feel like the last year we did the highest grossing film was Aladdin? Was it a Disney movie?
It's always Aladdin.
Aladdin has been the top film.
I can't.
I think-
2006, it won't have been Aladdin.
No, it
No,
definitely would have. No. I think it's
It's
because
Pirates
when
of the
we were
Caribbean, I remember.
when we were looking through these films to decide, when Ed was looking to decide what film he was going to pick, I was looking thinking, yes, let's do Aladdin.
Let's do Aladdin. Yeah.
And
Sorry
sadly,
about that, guys.
wasn't my choice.
Well, they're similar.
The best-selling album, based on the US figures, was REM Automatic for the People.
Oh, yep, I owned
An
that.
album I know of, but have never heard.
How does it go?
Automatic for the people. It's an album, dear. How does it go?
I actually thought you were singing it.
No. Goodness me.
I think you did well with that, though.
It sounded a lot like Michael
that's one of the songs, is it? Okay.
Yeah,
well,
yeah.
Excellent. Well, I think we set the scene here for 1992. And with that, we're going to take a short break. And when we come back, we're going to discuss Reservoir Dogs.
Not including reservoirs or dogs.
And welcome back. So now we're going to be discussing the film Reservoir Dogs. Tell me, Taylor, have you seen this film before?
I have not, unsurprisingly. No, never
No.
seen it before. No history. Wasn't looking forward to it when I found out it didn't involve dogs.
That is an upsetting aspect of it.
I thought it'd be like, have you seen A Dog's Way Home, A Dog's Purpose? You know, where the dogs have the voices and we follow them through their charming but exciting lifestyles.
My lord.
Yeah, no, I haven't. But I think I can, imagine what you were expecting then.
Yeah, and I have to say, in that term, it did disappoint.
I've got to say, though, those films sound as painful to me as Reservoir Dogs sounded to you.
No, please watch A Dog's Way Home.
It
It's
will
so
never,
good.
ever happen. No.
You almost watched The Kissing Booth when I told you to. So.
I did not watch
I'm just worried for when it's Taylor's turn to pick a film. We're going to get something like this.
Yeah.
Okay, Mark, what's your experience with the film?
Well, I'd seen some of it before, but I obviously had never watched it to the end because I couldn't remember the ending. So I know up until the point I'd watched it, and after then I was like, oh, I don't remember any of this. So whether I just got to that point and stopped it, or whoever I was watching it with stopped it, or yeah. So I'd never watched it all the way through by the looks of it, but I'd seen the first half. Yeah.
I having done film studies at school and university and things like that, it's obviously one that goes around. Then like you have to watch the seminal work from Quentin Tarantino, and so I'd seen it quite a few times, and liked it. I think I thought there was a lot of cool aspects to it, but it probably been 15 or so years since I last saw it.
In terms, I'm going to say, I feel like you're both expecting me to be like, oh, I hate it. It was. I appreciated it for what it was. I don't like the genre. It was a bit gory for me, but I'm not going to be overly negative throughout this. So get excited, guys. You're welcome.
I'm hyped.
I'm less excited. I like negative Taylor.
And there was no boobs. So well done, guys.
Thanks.
Well, I feel like every other film we've watched has had like loads of drugs, sex, and violence, whereas this did not. So, well, right, okay.
They talked about it. There you go.
Yeah. Wow.
All right. Well, I'm glad it met some of your seals of approval.
What are your?
It's obviously what we're striving for.
What's your overview before we dive in?
I don't know really. I mean, it's a Tarantino, so I know what sort of thing to expect going into it anyway, and I do generally enjoy his work. Not necessarily all of it, but probably his earlier stuff more than his later stuff. Yeah, I was looking forward to watching it again, like I said, because I thought it had been a long time anyway, and I hadn't even realised I'd not seen it to the end, so I enjoyed it. I feel like this is the end discussion we're having now.
I wanted to give a little teaser.
All right.
Well, I seem to remember thinking about it fondly because as much as I like a few of Quentin Tarantino's films, I find that he is incredibly self-indulgent, and I don't always like some of the techniques and trademark moments that he puts over his film, and Reservoir Dogs doesn't really have any of those things. So I quite like it from that point of view, or would look back on it fondly from that point of view. But I remember when I was younger, I definitely thought it was a cool film, if that makes sense.
Oh yeah, it's definitely a cool film. It was a cool film, shall we say? I still think it is. I think it's one of them films. But I mean, you say about it being self-indulgent, but he literally starts the film himself, doesn't he? I mean, it's him.
It does.
It's him talking over the opening sort of cut the credits of the film while they're all talking around the table. And I immediately, when I heard his voice, I was like, "Yeah, he does." I thought the same as you. He's so self-indulgent. I'm going to start this film off.
I feel like this opening scene shows you the best and the worst of Tarantino. The best in the sense that his dialogue is so natural and so realistic in this scene, and it's just people talking. It's irrelevant to what we're going to be doing later in the film, and it is really good. You get a sense of everyone's character. You're introduced to them all, but then you just have him shocking you with this like a virgin talk, and I'm just like, I get it. Like you keep drilling this point home. We get it. Like you think it's because she's a slut rather than just. I'm not a prude or anything, but I'm a bit like, yeah, all right, Quentin, you got your little speech in there now. Shut up.
Oh, totally. I agree with you there. It's like there's this language thrown in there that's just you don't need at all, like to make the scene, because I like the fact the scene then sort of goes on to that tip conversation, which I enjoy a lot more.
I like the tip conversation, but I couldn't understand what they said for the first section. I was turning the volume. It was just too muttery. They went like it was. Because it was just chat, it A, didn't grab my focus, and B, it was difficult to listen to what they were saying.
And I think at that point, sorry Taylor, at that point, this film has an incredibly strong cast in it, like some really good actors with Quentin Tarantino, and it's really obvious that he is not the caliber of actor that everyone else is during that. I mean, Steve Buscemi, who's Mr. Pink, going on about the tip. I really believe that that's how he feels.
Oh yeah, It's so good. It's just he's so convincing in that part, and you start to think with him. You start to think, well, he's got a point. Like starts to convince you.
Question: What is your opinion on the tipping discussion?
I mean, I always tip, but
I agree. I think, especially in the UK where people are paid a better wage than they are in America, I think unless someone wows you, why would you tip them?
Yeah, I think good table service deserves
I
tip.
I would be more likely to refuse a tip when I get bad service than sort of the other way round. So like I generally will tip unless it's bad, and then I'll be like, no, you're not getting a tip. But I mean, you're right. It should be a tip should be given for good service, and that's where he's making a good point.
Yeah.
Like I'll tip someone if they give me really good service, but that's not really how it works anymore, is it? I mean, it's more a case of you tip because, or especially if it's perhaps somewhere you like going,
But I just don't like that, because if you go to, like, for example, Starbucks, they're getting paid the same wage. They're taking your order, they're making your drink, they're half, sometimes not necessarily at Starbucks, they're delivering it to your table, but you wouldn't tip. So it's just, I think it's interesting that it's become such a custom, and it's because of the American tradition, like, that you tip.
Oh yeah, you can blame the Americans.
Yeah,
it's just weird.
My least favourite thing is the automatic service charge that's applied to a bill or anything. I don't like that.
Yeah, it's a bit presumptuous to say the least.
I didn't realise Quentin Tarantino was in his film. Just saying. I didn't know the actors. I don't know what he looks like.
That's fair enough. He's not in it a lot. But he does like to insert. Certainly in his early films, he likes to insert himself in at least once or twice.
Well, I remember seeing an interview with him, and he said he wanted to be an actor, and he thought the best way to be an actor was to just make the films himself and put himself in it.
He's not wrong.
I can respect that.
I've seen that a few times, but yeah, I mean, obviously he realised he was much of a stronger director than he was an actor.
Is Mr. Brown the one that is dead or is missing and they don't know where he is?
Yeah, that's him.
Okay, that makes more sense that I didn't... So he was just in the first scene?
He's in later on as well.
Is he? I need
in
to
the
look
flashbacks.
Okay, I need to Google the pictures because...
I won't worry about him too much.
Okay, right.
But obviously, and then we get one of those iconic moments from this film is peppered with iconic moments that you see everywhere. When they're walking in slow motion with their sunglasses on. I can't remember the song.
It's got some good music.
It's you see it recreated in so many things. Perhaps again, not so much these days, but for a good decade after.
Little green bag.
Yeah, little green bag. You always see men in suits putting sunglasses on, walking in slow motion. I've seen it in sitcoms and all these kind of things. So
it is so iconic. That is a genuine iconic.
Yeah, oh, definitely. And it's the poster and everything like that. I mean, it is that moment. So it was just nice to see that moment again. A long time since I'd seen it. And then bang, we're straight into like after all of that, and got Tim Roth in the back of the car, bleeding everywhere. So Mr. Orange. At this point, I didn't know their names.
So no, it takes a minute.
Actors' names, yeah.
So this confused me slightly. So it's after, so they've robbed a diamond shop, or they've attempted to rob a diamond shop. Oh god, Mr. Orange, and who's the guy driving? Is it Mr. White?
Mr. White, Harvey Keitel.
But you see, that's what I liked about the start of this film, is that it gets pieced together for you. So you don't know immediately what's happened. It's just like something's gone wrong. Obviously, you know they're up to no good. They're all in suits. They look like dodgy characters in this, like the conversations they're having. It's interesting that like they drop bits in, like so you know he's been shot, and then a little while later we find out why, like what they were doing. So I quite like the way that it unfolds.
The film becomes a post-mortem for the event, doesn't it? Rather than the event itself.
Obviously, they had a rendezvous point, which is this old warehouse. But it's obviously not looking good for Mr. Orange, is it? I mean, he's bleeding out on a ramp, and Mr. White's trying to talk to him. And then Mr. Pink turns up. That's Steve Buscemi's character. And that's when we we get some more information here that we learn that obviously that these cops were shooting, and there's a lot of shooting going on, and they all had to run and escape. But Mr. White's trying to keep it calm. It's all very quick conversation here, isn't it? It's all...
And they established that Mr. Blonde just went on a rampage and he kicked it all off. But they think it was a setup.
That's it, yeah.
You also get to know the relationship, don't you, between Mr. Orange and Mr. White. So like when he's on the ramp, he's like the fact he's there bleeding and he's like, just hold me. Like you can tell that they've had they're warm to each other. They don't know each other because none of them know each other's real names, but they're warm to each other. Whereas when Mr. White then talks to Mr. Pink, you know that they know each other. The way they act, it's an interesting dynamic between all of the boys.
Oh, definitely, and it's all, like I say, it's all very, because obviously they're all quite suspicious, especially once Mr. Pink comes in and starts saying there's a rat and it's a setup, and there's like separate moments where you get a slow zoom in on Mr. White where while you hear Mr. Pink talking, you can see him thinking about it and trying to work out, well, who was it? Was it him? Is it Mr. Pink? And there's a lot of accusations thrown back and forward and like shows of guns and it's all, yeah, it's very tense. Just sort of you feel yourself in that moment with them, like, you know, who is it? You know, in your head you're almost like, well, who was the rat? Which one? But obviously we've got nowhere near enough information at this point, and that's So and then this is also comes to, like, while they're talking, it comes to be apparent that it was a diamond heist.
They call it ice.
Yeah.
Ice. Yeah.
I'm really glad that I read a synopsis first because I wouldn't have known ice meant diamonds.
Highly sought after cubes.
But Mr. Pink's got the diamonds. He
stashed them.
Yeah, so he stashed them.
But
I don't know if we know that at that point.
We get the flash of him then next, don't we?
So while they're talking and he says, "How does he get away?" Then that's when we cut to him running from the cops and having a shootout and stealing a car to get there. You see that, and I don't know if it's just me, but I thought, right, well, I assume this is probably what we're seeing is real, so it looks like he's probably legit. Because he actually shoots a cop before he steals the car. So I'm guessing he must be okay at this point. I think, right, well, he seems kind of suspect, but that proves he's not.
I think this is one of the good things about Steve Buscemi's performance as Mr. Pink, is that he seems so agitated and so hyped up and worried, yet he is saying the most reasonable things of anyone.
Yeah. It does it so well. It really does, yeah. It's a very, very good job. And then after all that conversation, this is when we get one of those, so we get that first flashback for Mr. White. We get a title card for him, don't we, as well, Mr. White. Because I was a bit like, oh, I forgot about these sort of things. Do we get them for all of them? But we actually only get a couple of them.
Yeah.
No, yeah.
So, and that's where we find out that obviously he is close with the guy in charge, Joe, and that he knows them all. So, and in that respect, you sort of think, all right, he's probably on the up and up then as well. Like in the terms of the film, he's obviously not the rat either.
Yeah.
And then you come back from that, and like Mr. Orange has already passed out. It's like, is he dead? No.
But he wants Mr. Pink's just like, we should leave. We should take the diamonds and leave. And again, you've got Mr. White being like, no, we can't leave him. Like, this might not mean anything to you, but I don't want him to die. Which kind of testifies to his personality, but there's just so much killing in this film. You can't remember who kills, how many people each person's killed.
Well, you get another quite iconic moment here where because they start going at each other, don't they? And there's a bit of a scuffle, and it ends up with Mr. Pink lying on the floor, Mr. White standing over him, pointing guns at each other.
I love that shot.
And, yeah, it pans out to a shot, and that's another one where it's just like that. You see that a lot of places. That's a great moment where it's just that standoff.
Drinking that.
That's it.
Milkshake or
fast
Coke
food
or whatever.
Milkshake, yeah.
Just
Definitely the best looking bad guy.
That's exactly what I thought. I was like, wow, he's hot.
When I was younger, I would watch this and think Michael Madsen and Mr. Blonde was such a cool character and like really well acted, and like I loved watching all of his scenes. But I don't know why, being an adult now and watching it now, I am so scared of him now. He frightens the hell out of me. He's so unpredictable.
Oh, it's because it's so smooth and like just so unflustered in all of the film. But it gives that air of like, you just don't want to mess with this guy. But I just think it's fantastic where he's just barely saying a word, is he? And just sort of like he starts to goad Mr. White.
Are you gonna bark, little dog? Are you gonna bite?
Oh, that's it, yeah. And you're just like, oh, it's gonna kick off already.
I would not want to be the one to break those two up.
Yeah, he's not afraid to die, I don't think. I think he just doesn't care.
I think that's it.
He's there to do a job. He's done the job. He's killed the people.
I don't know if he's not so much not afraid to die. I feel like he's perhaps a very good read of people. Like, he knows what limits people have got. So he knows that Mr. White's not actually going to shoot him. Like, that's sort of like pushing his buttons a bit.
He's also clearly a psychopath, which just means that his narcissism will feel that he can get out of any situation.
Yeah, you're right, of course. Because then he takes him out to the car where he's got a cop in the boot.
Yeah.
I always think, I never expect their reaction to be as happy as it is. Like, they're all like really pleased about it. It's just like, oh, you think we're like, oh, what have you done? But oh, nice work, you've got a cop in the boot. Like, all right.
Well, they see it as a bargaining chip, don't they?
Yeah.
Oh, it breaks my heart.
What does?
Yeah, it's horrible.
It's just the fact that there's a cop in the boot. It's like he's so scared. Like he's been got by the bad guys, and it doesn't sit. This is why I don't like these sort of films. I don't like knowing. Like, the one thing I knew about this film going in was it got banned from TV for the torture scene. And as soon as I saw that cop, I was like, oh, like,
I didn't know it'd been banned from TV.
Yeah, for the torture scene, like it. That's what I've been told anyway.
I mean, it's interesting because you don't really see a lot of the actual. You don't see anything real gory happen on screen because, I mean, we're not there yet, but it even pans away when he's doing that bit. But
that's quite an iconic technique that they use there to not show you it, because what you imagine is happening is much worse than the special effects or anything else could be.
But anyway, we're not quite there yet. Anyway, so before we get to that point, we've got another title card in for Mr. Blonde, and this is where we learn that he's just come out of prison, and he's also in with Joe and Nice Guy Eddie, who's Joe's son, which I'd forgotten about. Who they know, so they've spoke about the fact that Nice Guy Eddie's on his way, and this is sort of the first time we've seen him properly on screen talking, isn't it? Aside from the first scene, and they start wrestling in the office. I found that really weird. Like, what? Like, he stands there taking off like all his jewelry and all that. It's like, what's going to happen? And then they just start having a random wrestling match. It's like, this is an interesting dynamic.
It's a bit random, that bit.
It's definitely random, but
always find that scene uncomfortable, just because they're like apparently friends, but it's just so like weirdly charged as well.
Yeah, definitely.
I like the fact that this is the scene where you get to know a bit more about Joe. Like, you learn the extent of how deep into crime he is. Could you say that? Like,
oh yeah,
oh, you've got him. Oh, well, don't worry, I can set you up with blah. Like, we can set you up with blah blah at the docks, and you can be on the books. And you can tell that Mr. Blonde's just ready to be back into it. He's like, what can I do? Like, when can I do a proper job and whatnot? And I like the fact it's introduced like that. Like, you see the connections, you hear about the connections rather than see them.
No, definitely. I mean, you obviously start to get a very mob feel for it as well. It's like, right, clearly these are mob level people, with all the bling and the son and the dad, sort of gives it that real air. And I also feel like this is another moment where you almost tick someone off as like, well, it's not Mr. Blonde because he's really, part of the team, so he can't be the rat. It is my approach to it. Like, whenever we see these scenes, it's almost like it's saying, this guy's not the guy.
Out of interest, Mark, did you remember who the rat was?
No. But this is what I mean. This is why I don't think I'd got to the end of the film, because it's completely slipped my mind, and it was just a bit like, oh, which is why I was quite enjoying it as well. Like, almost figuring out for yourself a little bit of a whodunit.
Yeah. So
I was almost a bit annoyed when you find out who it is, because it's not sort of just in the middle of the film, really, isn't it?
I love it. I love finding out who it is, but
but not till the end. I wanted to find out later in the film. I wanted to keep it going. I wanted to keep the guessing going, so it's more of an end reveal. I mean, it's nothing wrong with that. It's just I started viewing it more like a murder mystery, which it obviously isn't.
No.
Yeah.
They then start beating the copper, don't they? Because they want information. They're like, and he's saying, "Oh, I've only been on the force 18 months. I don't know what's what."
Yeah, with some brutal punches as well. Like, I was listening to it loudly with headphones on, but I could really feel the punches.
Yeah. Proper, gruesome sort of beatings. And they tie him to a chair, don't they? Or gaffer tape him to a chair.
I know it's not real, but it really hurts my heart that people can do this sort of thing. Like, do you know what I mean? Just seeing it, it's just not for me.
I know what you mean. I for the first time in my life watched this film empathetic to all the characters, I think. And like suddenly I put myself in the situation of, oh, what if I was that policeman? That would be an absolute horrible situation to be in. And that you got that moment, jumping ahead a bit, when Mr. Blonde pulls the gun out on him and you see him squirming, trying to move his head out the way of the gun. You're like, well, it's probably what you would do. It's horrible. It is horrible.
Yeah.
I completely understand what you're saying, Taylor.
No rom-coms, no dogs, no giggles.
Don't think I insert myself into these characters' lives quite as much as you guys obviously do. But that's fair enough. But we're not far from that moment, really, because nice guy Eddie turns up and sort of takes charge of the situation, doesn't he? Tells them we've got to move the cars, and they're all throwing accusations around. But that's so they go move the cars and they leave Mr. Blonde in the warehouse just with the cop and Mr. Orange, who's still passed out on the ramp. I mean, Tim Roth's part of this film, 90% was just lying on a ramp in a pool of blood. I was like, that's I can get paid to do that.
This whole, like, I knew, I just knew that this horrible bit was coming up, and I had literally hands over eyes, fingers in ears. I just couldn't. I literally couldn't.
I was getting excited for it as well, like you were. Because as soon as they all left and he puts his foot up and takes his knife out of his boot, I was like, do you listen to the radio? I was like, oh, I know what's coming.
Great choice of music, though.
Oh, yeah, stuck in the middle of you. And again, that music has become almost synonymous with the film, I think. Like, I do hear that music and think of that film specifically. But it is that's when you really see the psychopathic element to his character, I think.
It is horrible. And you got that bit where he's just cut his ear off and he's like, right, I'm going to go out to my car. Music's still playing in the background. All of this is unfolding. We just have that slow track following out to the car, gets the gas, closing the boot, coming back in. So music comes back up again. And you're just like, this is horrific.
Yeah, it is bad. It is. I mean, even at this point, I was a bit like, oh, this is uncomfortable to watch. I mean, uncomfortable in a good way. I mean, it's supposed to put you on the edge, isn't it? You're supposed to feel wrong, like, and this is like, oh, this is not good. But like, when he was throwing the gas at him, and like you said, and he points the gun at him as well, and he's that whole bit, you're really taken to an uncomfortable place.
And I couldn't remember how that situation resolved itself, because I was a bit like, I don't think he burns him. I don't.
This is, like I was saying, this is where I got to. I think I realised this is where I got to watching the film and then stopped. So either I was young and I turned it off, or I was watching it with someone and they turned it off. But that was the end of the film for me the first time watching it. So everything that unfolded from here was new for me. It's like, oh, okay, that's how it ends. Great.
That's the end. I was going to say, let's take a short break while we have the opportunity, and then you'll have to come back for the next section to find out what happens.
Absolutely. We'll be back shortly. Welcome back. And Mr. Blonde is standing there about to light the match when?
Bam shakalaka.
That's the sound of a gun. Yeah, Mr. Orange shoots Mr. Blonde many, many times.
Unloads that magazine into him.
What a moment. Loved it.
That's unlike you.
In this harrowing film, that is quite a feel-good moment. I would agree.
It's like, ha, don't set him on fire. You're dead.
It is a pleasing moment for sure. I mean, because you don't you don't. I mean, as much as you don't want him to have anything of that other stuff done to him either, you definitely don't want him to set him on fire.
No.
Like that's like it starts to get to one. I'm like, oh god, like you were saying, like I'm sure that doesn't happen. So it was like phew. Like, that would have been too much for me.
And I feel like you've forgotten that Mr. Orange is even there.
Yeah.
And that's the beauty of it, isn't it? He's been dead on that ramp for so long that you're not expecting that at all. So it's a great reveal.
And you've got to think, how long has he been waiting for that moment? Like, how long has he been awake is my question. And he's reached for the gun, and he's timed it to save his life, hasn't he?
I don't think it. I think he's come around to see it personally.
Maybe.
He was unconscious because you probably would fall. You've been shot in the gut, then you probably would pass out from the pain. And I like to think he's come round just in the nick of time. But I don't. Either way could be true. I mean, it's open to interpretation, isn't it?
This conversation between Mr. Orange and the copper is my favourite and one of like my least favourite conversations in the film. Like the fact the cop knows the whole time that he was the undercover police and did not even
say anything. Yeah.
Didn't contemplate breaking. Like, it's heartbreaking. And then he's like, you just need to hold on. The police they're 2 blocks away. And he's like, but I'm about to die. And he's like, I am dying.
Yeah.
And I turned to my other half in this moment, was like, why are the cops not coming? He's like, because they want Judd.
Yeah, they are after the big fish.
And I hadn't realised at that point that's what they were waiting for. And it's just the fact that these 2 guys are literally in the worst situation they can be in.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Like they want the big boss.
It's quite a moment. And then immediately we cut to a flashback again, don't we? And this for Mr. Orange this time. Where we learn about him taking on the job. He's talking to a guy in a diner who I could never really work out if he's another cop or if he's just a guy he knows, because he dresses like a hippie from the late 60s, but seems to know all about being an undercover cop, and like how to like tell a story and all this and that. And I for the whole section,
does seem to have come from a different time period, doesn't it?
Yeah, it's all very like, who is this guy? And he doesn't really ever call him like his boss or anything. Just sort of this guy who's telling him how to be an undercover cop. So I guess it doesn't really matter, but it's just it left me sort of scratching my head a little bit.
I
know what you
didn't
mean.
care about his backstory.
Wow, all right.
I'm glad he's the cop, but this whole him training and learning how to do it, meh, whatever. We know now.
I think you need it for what's going to come up, in the sense that now you have that information, you get what he's had to go through to get to the point where he is so close to doing it, his objective. It was at this point I suddenly remembered Tim Roth's English. I thought he did really well being an American. I'd forgotten about it.
I don't suppose you hear him really talk much before this point, do you? Apart from screaming that he's dying in the back of a car.
Yeah.
But it's like all people putting on accent. It does slip every now and again, but no, he does it very well. I quite like this whole scene where he's telling the story and learning, and perhaps that's just being like a bit of an amateur actor. You sort of. It makes you think about it, and you think, oh yeah, so you go through it and you start trying to visualise it yourself. And then when he's telling the story to the guys, he actually is visualising himself doing it.
And we get to see his visualisation.
Yeah, and I thought that was very good, like how you go inside his mind to see it, and him thinking about how that story plays out. Although I still found it like supposed to be this like amusing anecdote. It just really wasn't. That was just like, well, he went in and there were some cops there. And then a really dramatic moment where he puts on the hand dryer. It's just like, what's going on? But it's good. I mean, and you could get it. It's like a boring story that just sort of blends you in. It's not too over the top.
Do you know, is this the bit where you also see how he gets shot? The whole thing just makes me feel stressed because you know that the 2 cops are there and they can't get out of the situation and they've just got to wait. It just makes me, I was like, they're going to die. Like...
But we don't. I mean, it's a flashback, isn't it? So I mean.
I mean, when we're back in the room.
And we're not back there yet, though.
Oh, what happens now?
So then they go to. So they pick him up from the apartment, and you see him because this is all about his back. This is obviously his first time undercover job, which I think, for me, is what makes it a lot more gut-wrenching, that he's in this awful situation. Like, he's psyching himself up in his apartment. Like, oh, he's remembering to put on his ring, and he gets his jacket, and he's like talking himself up in the mirror and stuff like that. And you get a real feel for him, like he really wants to do a good job. And then obviously they go to this, and then this is when we finally find out everything about it, because then we cut to the warehouse where they're actually planning the job.
Yeah.
We finally get to see them all get given their names and like what they're doing and these bits, and because I love the fact that Steve Buscemi doesn't want to be Mr. Pink. He tries so hard to get it. Well, I'll be Mr. Purple, like, and stuff like that. Does he want to train with Mr. White? You've got to call him. I love, again, that's Buscemi just being an absolute legend. Like, the whole scene is just quality.
Mr. White definitely is cooler.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah. I don't know. I'd be Mr. Pink quite happily. Pink's my favourite colour, so. And then we get a bit more of that whole Mr. Orange, Mr. White relationship, because that's where they're. Well, I suppose they are staking it out. They're outside the diamond shop,
Talking it through.
like talking about the thing, and there's a bond forming there, which makes more sense now when you see that and you go back. Okay, so they have become a bit closer while planning the job out, which is why he feels a bit more. Well, I'm not responsible for him, but close to him, I think. So it gives you that. It gives you those bits of the story you need, because you think they're supposed to be all strangers. Why is he so defensive of him?
It makes almost a kind of master and apprentice story as well, doesn't it? Where
absolutely,
Mr. White's taking him under his wing and is looking after him, and then as we find out, he gets shot kind of on his watch.
Yes.
His gun shot? Oh, how upsetting! How he gets shot. We're not there yet, but
so we go from the diamond heist scene to then we see the getaway, and this is the only other time we see Mr. Brown. Well, no, this is the third time we see Mr. Brown. And this is where he dies. So he's obviously been shot in the head, or he's got some sort of head.
I didn't really
wound.
understand that bit, because they said he got shot in the head. Like, I don't know, from my experience of watching other things, it's shot to the head is like death. Instant.
Yeah, but whether it's weird, isn't it? Because he's
It's
obviously bleeding from the top
through.
of his head.
Yeah.
But yeah, and he crashes the car, so they have to run out, and he's already dead. But then Mr. White kills a couple of cops, just blasts them away, which you
can see impacts Mr. Orange.
yeah, because it's his people, isn't it? And he can't stop it.
And this is so. Then they go and steal some woman's car, and that's how we found out Mr. Orange gets shot, which is one of those moments which is almost—it's not anticlimactic. That's not the word I want, but like
it is anticlimactic. Like, it's not.
You assume he's been shot by the cops, and it turns out he's been shot by a random woman who he then has killed.
He feels guilty
because
for
she
it.
shoots him, he shoots her back. Yeah, and he feels bad for that. So, like, the whole thing's really gone downhill for him at this point.
Why do all Americans have guns? Like,
because they.
I know it's the law, but it's just mental, isn't it?
It's the right to bear arms. Yeah, they all do.
Know, but
they don't all do, obviously. But
mental, absolutely mental that this woman just whips out a gun, shoots him straight in the stomach. She's brave as well.
But I mean, I think that speaks a lot for these sort of how much these crimes must happen in America, I guess. That people would drive around with a gun in the glove box, expecting that they might get carjacked at some point. You know, that's perhaps why she's got it in there.
Wasn't worth it though, was it? She should have just got out of the car.
If he hadn't had a gun on him, then she might have got away with it. But
that was two of them, one of her.
Well, right. Well, yeah, you never know. She might have whipped it around. So now we end up back at the now we're back to present day, as it were, real time, I suppose. And this is where all the other guys. Well, Eddie turns up with Joe. They all come back into the warehouse, and obviously we see Mr. Blonde is dead by the door. Mr. Orange is now conscious, and Mr. Orange starts saying about how like he was going to do this and tries
Take
to
the money
tried to make up a story, and that's why he killed him. But now we find out, obviously, well, we know because Eddie does not believe a word of it. He first of all just shoots the cop anyway. This cop just shoots him dead, which I found that quite jarring. It was a bit like, after all that, still dead.
Sad face.
Just an unfortunate thing. But like the way he slowly sort of says about how he knows it wasn't Mr. Blonde, because he went to jail for Joe. Like, he actually defended him, did his time to defend his dad. Like, so in his eyes, there's no way he could be it. And you start to think, oh, okay, yeah, you see where
He's
they're coming
onto
from.
it, but Mr. White ain't having it.
No, that's it. Yeah, he's still not buying it. And then Joe's turns up and says,
It's him.
It's him. It's Mr. Orange. And we get a bit of a standoff now.
Can we say, Joe, absolutely spot on. Well done. Great great instincts there.
I mean, great instincts, but like he said, he should never have trusted someone he wasn't 100% on in the first place.
Yeah.
It's always a bit... I always, at that point, sort of think to myself, like, why did he hire Mr. Orange? You never really find that out. I mean, like, you know that... I mean, I know some of the characters you don't get any backstory for, but, like, we know that Mr. Pink says he's known Joe since he was a kid. Obviously, we know him and Mr. White go way back, and Mr. Blonde... like Blue and Brown, you don't really care about because they're dead anyway. But I wanted to know almost how he come across Mr. Orange. We don't find that out, and I was always a bit like, oh, that's a shame.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
So there was just all a big shootout then, really. And
It's kind of a classic Mexican standoff, isn't it? With them all pointing the guns at each other, and you wonder, like, don't know how this situation's going to resolve itself now.
Yeah, and I didn't really expect it to resolve itself like that. Honestly didn't think they were all going to shoot each other. I was like, oh, okay.
Why does Mr. Orange say, I'm a cop?
Well, before this, though, can we just deal with the fact that Mr. Pink then rolls himself out from under the ramp, just tiptoes out and gets the bag and goes. But what my heartbreaking thing about that Mr. Pink bit is that while those two are having this bit on the ramp, you hear him get arrested in the background.
Oh, do you?
Yeah, I was like, oh no, I thought he'd got away. I was rooting for him the whole time. And you could hear some like cops, and you just hear, I had to rewind it to listen to it again, like turn it up. But you basically hear him getting arrested in the background. So
I wanted him to get away with it.
I did. But then like Taylor says, and I agree, like when Mr. White sort of crawls over to Mr. Orange as he's dying, and then he says he's a cop, and you're like, why?
Why say it now?
I thought he was going to shoot him in the head.
Well, he does shoot him in the head.
Does he? But no, it cuts out.
Yeah, but that's what is cutting it. So he shot him, and they shoot Mr. White.
They shoot. Yeah,
I
couldn't
it was
remember it, and I was
over.
like, I don't know how he's going to survive this. Yeah, no, he gets shot.
You see him shoot him, and then you obviously bang, 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 and he slumps out. And that's it. Credits. Everyone's dead apart from Mr. Pink.
Yeah, well, it's kind of like all of them. Mr. Orange probably couldn't live because he'd killed the woman.
Yeah, I think he felt.
So that's probably why, in the cosmic scheme of things, he is killed as well. As with Mr. White, he killed 2 policemen. And Mr. Pink, I don't think he kills anyone, but he does. He says he tags a couple of cops, which means he got shots off at whether he killed them or not. Which maybe that's why he then only gets arrested. I mean, he spent his life in prison, but...
Oh, yeah.
What an upsetting ending to a film.
I don't know, but I quite like it, though. Like,
there's no warmth. There's no happiness. There's no giggles. There's no sparkle.
But there's no thinking about it anymore. You know, like, you're not sat at the end of the film going, I wonder what happened. You know what happened.
I thought Mr. Orange stayed alive. I'm so upset to find out that he was shot in the head.
Sorry, he's still alive. He's living in the south of France with a dog. The Reservoir Dog. But no, so...
Saturn.
It's, well, I like I say, I like it as an ending. I find it very final. Like, sometimes you like an ending to be ambiguous and you can think about what might have been, but I like that there's no maybes at the end of this film. They're all dead. He's been arrested. It's done.
It's very definitive ending. I think it does go to show that there's not really, like, the film doesn't have a purpose. Like, there's no kind of lesson learnt here or anything like that. It's just kind of like, well, this is how it can go wrong and this is what happens.
You're a bad guy, you're deaded.
Don't steal diamonds.
If you're a good guy, you're probably still going to get deaded.
So, in hindsight, does it hold up today?
I would say, so this was Quentin Tarantino's debut film. Like, I still think it leaves a hell of an impact. I think you can still see that today. You were able to watch it, Taylor, and respect it and be affected by it still. I mean, we've seen stuff in films that is far worse than what happens in this one, but there is quite a great craftsmanship to this film, and it's someone, I think, flexing their muscles as a director straight away, and it's kind of like a really a good calling card for, like, here, I'm a director and writer, look, check this film out, what I've made that has such an impact, because I think Tarantino needed this film to be a success, or like he's desperate for it, and he pulled it off with it. I don't think in 2021 it's very woke at all.
No, yeah.
But I think in terms of, let's tell a story that doesn't really have a much plot to it, and let's put these characters in a situation and see how it unfolds, I think it still works.
It's much better than Once Upon a Time in Hollywood.
I've not seen that
I've
still.
not seen that yet either.
Don't.
Oh, okay. I've not heard good things about it, but I mean, I'm probably, yeah. I think, just jumping in there, that I probably think very similar to Ed in this one. Like, it's very, it's a real good film. It's just some unfortunate moments in that. Like, there's some real hard racial slur moments in there where you're
I'm
just
not a
like,
fan of that.
yeah, and it's very jarring. Like,
It completely takes you out of the film as a good film.
It is from obviously from a 2021 standpoint, where we're all very much more awoke, to use Ed's phrase, which is obviously not his phrase, but yeah, it really hits your ears, and it really hits you, like, and it's like, oh, that's, and sometimes it's just it is unnecessary, but it's also very Tarantino. He did like to use that sort of language in his films, especially back then. I'm sure he probably still does now. And you can almost say, well, in that time, these sort of people probably did speak like that. Like, they're gangster people. They're not nice people. They would use harsh racial slurs. But you don't want to hear them. And I'm not...
Those moments,
not,
if he just cut them out, it would be such a good film today.
You could cut them out. And I think it does
you could
drag
cut them
down,
out and you wouldn't lose anything.
You wouldn't lose a lot, no.
It's unnecessary.
I think it's a shame to have to dismiss the whole film based on those pockets, like 2 or 3 instances. Other than that, take them out of it, and you've got a real solid film there that I do think holds up quite well. It kept me engaged. I was really, really enjoyed watching it, even at 11 o'clock in the morning, which I didn't think I was going to. So, yeah, I do think it holds up, but has a couple of moments that cover your ears.
I'd agree. I'd concur.
Yeah.
Well, you've said it. You've said it to a T. Like, this is not a film I would pick to watch for myself, because I like warm, fuzzy films that make me happy. Like, everyone knows I'm a bit of a true crime. I like a bit of true crime, but this is just too far. I don't want to see it. I don't like the blood. I don't like the pain. I don't like the fact that everyone dies. But in terms of hindsight, those moments make it not hold up today for me. You wouldn't go to the cinema now and watch it in the same way that you could, for example, Toy Story.
I mean, oh my word!
It was the first one that came to my head. Like, you could go to
different
Toy Story
demographics,
now.
But yeah.
You know what I mean?
I think I absolutely would go to the cinema and watch it, but I wouldn't be expecting to watch Toy Story.
But as a new film, you wouldn't go to it and be like, "Oh, well, that's."
I don't think it would get away with some of the dialogue that's in it.
No. Oh, definitely not.
But I think as a story, as it's made, the characters, absolutely, you could release this tomorrow and it would be great. Yeah. And I think it's one of those films that everyone should see, I think.
Yeah, agreed.
I mean, if you can take the bad, the questionable and vulgar stuff out, dialogue wise, I think everyone should, at least at some point in their life, see this film.
Definitely.
Are you pleased you've seen it, Taylor?
Well, you guys keep talking about these iconic moments that I've never noticed. So I do feel like that this whole podcast is my film education. There's so many things that...
If we get nothing out of it more than that, then I think we've achieved something.
Definitely. I look forward to it because you watch things like New Girl and they'll reference films we've watched, so like Lethal Weapon, and I was like, seen that? No, it happens.
Seen it.
There you go, you see? This is good.
Yeah, it is good.
That is good. Well, I think with that, we'll say that watch Reservoir Dogs if you want, but be prepared for some distasteful dialogue throughout. But other than that, it still holds up today. So we're going to take a short break, and then we'll be back to find out what we're going to be listening to next time.
Whoop, whoop.
So that was Reservoir Dogs, signed, sealed, and delivered into the trash. No, I'm just kidding. But now we have to decide what film we're going to be watching next time. And to do that, we have to find out which year it's going to be from. So it's time to spin the wheel of films years.
Come on, 2000s.
Write in with your suggestions for the names for the wheel. Okay, here we go. And spinning.
Spin it, baby.
Oh my word, it's 1998.
Another 90s film. Ooh. Well, I believe, yes, it's my turn this time,
It's
it
your
not?
turn, yes.
It is, right. After some deliberation, I have decided to choose a classic film called Rush Hour.
I nearly spat my coffee out.
Oh, my word. It's
Are you sure you don't want to do a different film?
It was a hard choice. I was a bit like, well, Something About Mary was a good film, maybe that, maybe Wedding Singer, Star Trek Insurrection,
City of Angels, yeah.
No, Rush Hour is the film of choice. It's I'm not going to lie, it's a favourite of mine, but it's been a while since I've watched it, so any excuse to watch it again. So let's see what we think of it.
Let's see if it holds up.
Taylor, what do you think? Are you excited?
I think you might have made a mistake because I feel like if it doesn't hold up, I'm going to destroy one of your favourite films.
I don't listen to you anyway, so it's fine.
Oh, great.
It's
I'm really
going to be
glad.
Lethal Weapon all over again.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, guys. And with that, remember you can subscribe to us on your preferred podcast platforms so you get every episode as it's released. If you like the show enough, remember you can give us a review on your podcast app, preferably Apple Podcasts. And if it is a 5, that's up to you. But would be much appreciated. You can get in touch via that'shindsight@gmail.com. And you can follow us on social media, Facebook and Twitter @that'shindsight, and Instagram @that'shindsightpod. There we go.
Don't forget that pod.
Don't forget the pod. Thank you very much, Taylor and Mark.
Thank you, Edward, as always.
Oh, I didn't stop talking then to wait for a thank you, but it worked out well.
Clearly.
So, we shall see you next time. Thank you for listening. Goodbye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.